There are numerous rights enshrined in the law and in the regulations that are afforded to residents, and you shouldn't be intimidated. The important thing is that you're not alone. The long-term care ombudsman is an independent advocate on behalf of residents. They're experts in what resident rights are, what residents are entitled to in a nursing home, and it's very important to take advantage of that. And this is a free service that's offered in every state, every county. Every nursing home has a long-term care ombudsman. There's a phone number that must be provided. If you ask for it from the facility, it must be given to you. You can also go to the consumervoice.org, and we have a map. You click on the map, it will show you who to call. We offer a litany of ways to advocate on behalf of your loved one. And you'll find once you have that information, it becomes easier to become an advocate.
Welcome to AARP Balancing the Scale, Self-Care for Caregivers. Today is a crucial conversation about the well-being of those who dedicate themselves to caring for others. My name is Hendren. I'm the Senior Associate State Director from AARP Illinois. And at AARP, our mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. And a crucial part of that is supporting our caregivers, who play an indispensable role in our communities. The responsibilities of caregiving, many of you understand, while rewarding, come with significant challenges. To delve deeper into these challenges and to talk about strategies for caregiver support, we're joined today by two esteemed experts in the field. Diane Slezak, who is the president and CEO of AgeOptions in Illinois, an organization committed to improving the quality of life and maintaining the dignity of older adults and those who care for them. And Amy Brennan, the executive director of the Illinois Family Caregiver Coalition. It is a group dedicated to recognizing, supporting, and empowering family caregivers across the state. Together with AARP, we're going to be navigating some of the complexities of caregiving, maybe some people don't want to talk about, and some they're ready to hear, and discuss the practical solutions for maintaining caregiver well-being. So let's begin with this important conversation. First, I want to welcome both of you ladies for today. Thank you so much. Diane, can you describe the emotional toll caregiving takes and why self-care, I think, is so crucial?
Thank you so much for having us today. We really appreciate being here, and we so appreciate our partnership with AARP. The emotional toll, I think, varies depending on the individual that you're caring for. I have been in my professional career here for 46 years, and over those 46 years, I have provided care directly for 8 family members, and all of them have been different in terms of the emotional toll that they might take. And I think the most important thing is to be very aware of self-reflection and what the impact of the emotional toll is. I think it depends on the relationship you have with the individual you're caring for. What was the quality of that relationship before you became a caregiver for that individual? And also, is it sometimes, whether it's a physical issue that you're caring for them for, or is it dementia? And often those, the kinds of dementia can create, I think, more stress and more of an emotional toll. And the last thing I would say is that always, when you're on a plane, it's that traditional advice that before you put the oxygen mask or whatever on the person that you're caring for on the plane, you put it on yourself. So you really need to monitor that. I mean, you don't want to get to the point where you're striking out at the person that you're caring for and also undermining your own health. You don't want to be the person that dies of a heart attack or some other, more immediate disease before your loved one passes away. So those would be some of the top things. I think I could go on this subject for a long time, though. Before this conversation, I started thinking through all of the people that I've cared for, and each of the situations were so different.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I like how you phrase that for listeners today, that each caregiving journey is unique, and to be able to take care of yourself and to recognize the stress and understand it's part of it, and to open and have conversations. And I think, let's go to Amy. We know from AARP, we have studies that says stress levels increase 65% for caregivers. That's huge. So what are effective stress management strategies, right? I mean, how does people, when you're in the throes of it, you're caregiving, like you have a loved one has dementia, and you may also have to be lifting them or even changing diapers and changing bedding and working, a lot of stress. What do you do to manage it, Amy?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Lori. And first, I just want to echo what Diane said. It's I've been thrilled to work with both you and Diane and so many of the other groups that are fighting for caregivers in Illinois. It's so important, and the fact that the figure that you just mentioned is one of the biggest reasons. And I know we're going to be sharing a lot of resources throughout this this conversation, but I just wanted to talk about some things that worked for me as a family caregiver. I had two very different situations, like Diane said, but some things, just trying to keep some normalcy to your life, whether and if possible, kind of first thing in the day, to because often it can be very isolating when you're a family caregiver, and like you said, in the throes of it. So one thing that I used to do is, when I was caregiving for my mom, I took a leave of absence from work, and I was really pretty much staying overnight at her long-term care facility. And the thing that would start off the day for me in a better way, and kind of just being able to take a breath, was just going off site somewhere, getting a cup of coffee from the coffee shop around the corner, and just kind of taking a few taking the walk, which helped, getting exercise, but keeping the at least just as much as possible, since so much of your time you're wanting to spend with your caregiver, with your loved one, and helping them. So doing something for yourself. I would also say just trying to get enough sleep as possible. That just will always help. Some kind, and a form of exercise, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes, throwing in a video, and it's something that you can do anywhere. Taking a walk around the block, and spending time with your pets if you have one. Getting a pet, I know it's a lot of responsibility, but that can really help. There's all sorts of studies that show that pets can kind of bring the stress level down. And I would also say something that we don't do enough is asking for help. A lot of us are so independent, but asking for help, and when people offer it, accepting it. We're independent. We're used to doing things on your own, but now's not the time to be the hero. Now's the time to accept that help. You probably often give help throughout your life. So now's the time to take help, whether it's from friends or family, members of your church or your religious organization, and some of the other hobbies that you have. Some of those folks are probably reaching out to you, and I would just say accept that help, which I think helps a lot.
That's wonderful. I think we can all reflect on our caregiving responsibilities. And we talk about taking that 30 minutes, whether to get a cup of coffee, to leave, to just get air, to exhale for just a moment, because it's, our next question we're going to go to Diane. We talk about that. We know that truly worry increases by 61%, and how they can balance, their loved ones and their own peace of mind. I mean, you go increase stress, and you go increase worry. And, I think that's very important, where you talk about having that moment of exercise. I know AARP offers free virtual, anybody can watch them, yoga, meditation, exercise, cooking classes. If it's a 30-minute or 20-minute of just exhale and relaxation, we hope you do take it. But, okay, so Diane, I want to follow up. Worry, like I said, huge. And we're compounding worry on top of stress. How can people, go back to, like, this is about finding your peace of mind. You have all these worries. And when I talk about worry, I'm talking about your loved one's health, their dementia, getting them to appointments, taking care of your own health, taking care of your own bills, your own credit card bill, paying for their expensive medicine. I mean, the list goes on if you've been in that situation. How does Medicare take care? How does Medicaid? How do you balance the worry, or how do you get a peace of mind in the middle of this, Diane?
So I think one thing that we always talk about is making sure that you set boundaries as much as possible. And that is easier said than done, even from my own perspective. Just this past week, I had an incident that I dove into with a cousin who's suffering from very advanced dementia. And it's really hard to say, this is the amount of time I have to give to this, or, try to set some boundaries around your time of day. And that means if you are offered something like respite care service to have somebody come in, you really need to take a break during that time and take advantage of the respite so that you're able to get out and do some of the things that Amy just suggested, so that you have some normalcy in your life, so that if you used to get together with friends for dinner every Friday night or something like that, you at least do that once in a while, just to have that safety valve on. I think the other thing is I always, especially with a couple of caregiver situations I was in, remember to, I start going into note-taking mode, especially in doctor's appointments. God give me the grace, that there's certain things that I can't change and I need to accept them. And we're just going to do the best we can with whatever this is. And it's almost like a higher power kind of thing where you just need to go into that second mode and say, we're just going to accept. I remember when my aunt was suffering from leukemia and I was unable to, I just loved her so much. It was just really hard to accept that this was going to conclude, but we're just going to make this ending the very best that we can. We're going to, shoot for the best we can. And if we can't get everything done, you just need to live with that. I think relying on family members when you can, sometimes families make things more stressful. I've also been through that kind of thing. So you need to be aware of that. And if you need to protect yourself from those unfortunate interactions with family members, you need to protect yourself from those things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It just popped up on the screen, our AARP caregiving resources. I want to go back to what you talked about is respite care. Can you define what respite care is, if that's a new term for listeners today?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you calling that out. So respite care is one of the services that area agencies on aging can connect caregivers to allow them to have a break from their caregiving duties. And here in suburban Cook County and in most areas, you have several different kinds of respite to choose from. It might be getting away for a weekend to attend a loved one's wedding somewhere, away from home. So we have placements in assisted living facilities and skilled care facilities where the older adult being cared for can be in a safe environment so that the caregiver is not worried about what's happening to them, but they're in an interactive environment sometimes where they have a great vacation themselves as a loved one being cared for. And then there's various lower levels of somebody coming in on a weekly basis or a periodic basis to take care for a day or several hours even during the day, so that you could get away to have lunch or get a haircut or, even do something like get to the dentist to make sure that your care is not taking a backseat to your loved one's care. So there's just all different levels. Daycare is another possibility. Adult day services where you could assign even for possibly a longer period of time to spend a day a week away, from the person that you're caring for.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to go to Amy. One thing I think Diane said was very important. I want to carry over to this question to Amy is it's okay to say, I can only do this much, right? To compartmentalize or to put some boundaries of how much you can give. Because otherwise, I think people get very anxious. You're already anxious in a caregiving situation and with the worry. So what kind of resources or strategies, Amy, do you think is good to employ when you're in that caregiving situations and you feel this wave of anxiety coming over, you start questioning yourself over, you start thinking about stuff. What do you do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Lori. And it definitely happens throughout. I loved one of the things that Diane mentioned a couple of minutes ago, keeping that notebook. I just remember the notebook was like my Bible that I kept with me always throughout the caregiving experience, just because, you're, like Diane said, your mind is kind of spinning with many different emotions. So, one of them is just kind of to keep that notebook, to keep track of everything and keep it with you. And then, you can always go back to it. But luckily, I feel like, lately, and since my caregiving experience was about 7 or 8 years ago. I feel like thankfully, so much more attention and recognition rightfully has been given to the caregiver, and not just because like, oh, woe is me, I'm spending all this time doing this, but it also will give the ability for you as a caregiver to spend that quality time with your loved one, in what might be the final, days, months, time with them. So I feel like we do have some great resources. AARP, you guys have a fantastic website, that a whole caregiver section, which I think is great. And the area, I feel like, each of the states have kind of a state. In Illinois, we have the Department on Aging, and they have a great hotline, and they can get you to resources not only with Department on Aging, but maybe in other agencies as well. I feel like a great one-stop shop are the area agencies on aging. They're here in Illinois. They're in every state. And I know we're going to put that information up on the screen too, and provide that information. But other things that can help if you're really in crisis mode, mentally. There's NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has a 24/7 hotline, and their website is great too to look for other resources. Alzheimer's Association is fantastic. They provide, have great expertise and people that are helping you and can help with kind of those specialty questions. So I think those are some. If when when you have more time and you want to join, here in Illinois to advocate for family caregivers, we know we just recently lost former U.S. First Lady Rosalynn Carter, and she had a wonderful. She focused on caregivers a long time ago, when it wasn't quite a thing yet, along with mental health. But she said, she has a great quote that says, all of us in our lives have either been a caregiver, are currently a caregiver, will be a caregiver, or will need care. And we see that in the statistics of, that about 20%, they estimate about 20% of us. So 1 in 5, and I think it's even more. I think there's a lot that's undocumented, that's unchecked, are caregivers right now. So these are just some resources that I think can be really, really helpful.
Thank you. I know that. So in AARP, for all of you that register, we sent you a link that takes you to AARP caregiving site. One of the features we have is kind of a planning guide, which is fantastic. Now, I always give the disclaimer: you're thrown into caregiving. Your loved one goes in the hospital. You're thrown in. You don't have time to write everything out. That's just not a luxury. You're just trying to tread and keep your head above water, right? But there is some situations where you are able to plan as much as you can. In this workbook, it talks about, your loved ones, if you have conversations, how to have these conversations, finances, where to go, what are their wishes, who is everyone's contact numbers, and that, it's a guide to help you plan and to help you navigate those conversations, because communication is very much part of it. I do want to go and talk about, as a caregiver, Diane, I'm going to ask, you guys have all shared kindly your personal stories. How do you know when you're in the throes and you kind of go, oh, I need help? I mean, yeah. Is it an awe moment, or is it where someone comes and says, taps you on the hand and says, honey, you don't look good, we need to talk? I mean, how do you know?
So I think one key point of awareness is when you start to either on and off or all of a sudden have the feeling like you no longer have a personal relationship that you used to have with that individual. This is no longer, I'm no longer having conversations with my mother, my aunt. I am now taking on the role of almost like a paid caregiver, but you're not paid. You're just feeling like you're doing a job. So your identity begins to be lost. You no longer have that relationship identity that you had, like where, I had just a big change. And I just felt like day after day, in one case with my mom, I had to go and put a back brace on her every single morning and then take it off every single night. And in between, had tons of doctor's appointments, and it was just a grind. And that feeling of mom and daughter and things that we used to have in common, those conversations were not happening anymore. So I think it is formally called identity discrepancy, where it sounds like a wonky term, but it's a real thing that happens with many caregivers. And that is a sign that you really need additional help, or you need to figure out how to rely on more family members or bring in more help, because you don't want to get, past that point. And I think trying to think about that and remind yourself of what, can you play some music? Can you watch a movie together with your loved one that you have both enjoyed? So often there can be positive aspects to caregiving where, the last days of their lives you just look back on them as wonderful days because you were able to connect with the person that you used to know maybe years ago, and you haven't been as connected with them on a personal, but paying attention to the quality, I think, of that relationship, the quality of, just things that you might still be able to do together, even though they might be bedbound at that point.
I think what you talked about the identifying moment, I think that I love that there is a term for it, and it is not in someone's head. It is a reality. I would imagine a lot of spouses who take care of their loved ones when they have Parkinson's or dementia, you get to that point, and you just say, you continue on, but there is a terminology for it, and it's truly happening. And there's no guilt in understanding or feeling that. That's the reality of the situation. And that's a great time to say, hey, I need some more help. And it's something that you should do. Don't feel guilty. Don't get anxious about it. I think that's one of the things, is to ask for help. It's okay. And we have some of the best here in Illinois. And I know this is going to be airing nationally. Reach out to your area agency on aging. Again, those links are going to be in, we post them below, but they're also going to be in your emails from AARP, and then also in the comment section of this. So you are not alone is something. And we have two experts here. So if anyone's listening, you have two remarkable experts who've gone through caregiving and fully understand. And so you are not alone at all. I want to go to Amy. I want you to go back. It's really important for me to talk about, where do you go for help? I want to reiterate this. If, there's a couple things we take from area agency on aging. When you go to your area agency on aging, what do you expect? Is it going to be long lines? Is it just where someone can go get lunch? What can you be able to get for support?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I don't mean to toss it to Diane, but I feel like as one of the heads of, the most active area agencies on aging in Illinois, Diane, I wonder if I can toss that one to you.
No, I'm happy to talk about that. In Illinois, we have caregiver resource centers throughout the state that are funded through the area agencies on aging. So because we have a big state and a lot of caregivers across the state, it can be hard to find those caregiver resource centers, but it is easy to use the resources that we're sharing to find your area agency and start from there. And in suburban Cook County surrounding Chicago, for example, we have 9 caregiver resource centers. And they normally start by doing an assessment. And we use something called a tailored care assessment to really pinpoint the greatest pain points that a caregiver might have. And that leads us then to, what are the resources that are available to that caregiver? It could be some of the things that Lori was mentioning earlier about, do you need help in resolving Medicare bills? Do you need help with finding a memory cafe where your loved one, as well as your loved one with dementia and you, might be able to attend a cafe to promote social interaction? Is it finding respite care services? Is it help with navigating hospital services? Hospitals are now required as part of federal law to identify who the caregiver is and make sure that they support that caregiver in some way. And we do have some hospitals that have great care that way, others, not so much. But those are some of the high points. But each of the AAAs in Chicago should be able to connect you with those assessment services. And I know it is available in many other states across the nation.
So Diane, I want to circle back. So the area agency on aging in any state is going to be kind of one-stop shop to be able to get resources, help, physical health support groups, get access to information, have people who are trained to be able to answer those questions. You don't have to go searching on your own. I mean, you can, but if you do anything, look for your area agency on aging, for these individuals are trusted and trained to be able to support you and hopefully guide you on this journey with resources that not only the state and the local, but even at the federal level, if there are any. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I would not minimize, a lot of caregivers who are still working, we are really working to have employers better support caregivers and understand that they need to take time off. But if you're working, AARP's resources in the evenings are also, amazing at being able to connect you and just learn more about the situation that your loved one is in and what kinds of steps you might be able to take.
Yep. No, thank you, Sam. We do a lot of programming, not only virtually, but also in person, care conversations and resources. And even if you have, that 10 or 15 minutes, if you look on, just Google or go w.aarp.org, we have plentiful to be able to have, because resources and information, sometimes if you just find the right thing, you can exhale, say, I'm not alone. So, Amy, I do want to let's go back to you. Mental health is so very important. How do you prioritize it when you're caring for someone else's mental health? How do you talked about a little bit about your tips of waking up in the day, but I think we got to do it all day long. How do I keep it prioritized? Is it a note that I put on my phone? Is it a timer? I mean, how do people do it practically?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and one of the things that I would definitely suggest is again reaching out. This is the time that a friend who maybe has gone through it before, a family member who you really connect with that can give that support. Again, it's the reaching out for help. And when it's really, serious, there's the experts at NAMI, and there's also counseling services, like we were just talking about through the area agencies on aging. Often there can be counseling services that you can access. And I would just emphasize that totally agree. AARP, you guys have awesome resources online. What I love about the area agencies on aging is they're not only a one-stop, that's where I would go for first stop. So you don't end up paying for things unnecessarily. There's often resources through the area agencies on aging, and they have the most up-to-date information about what, programs are available, but counseling, definitely is one. And the assessments that Diane was mentioning a few minutes ago, which are so important, because it's not only the assessments, the caregiver coordinators will follow up with you to see and not to help you feel less overwhelmed. So to figure out what are the pinpoints, the biggest hurdles that you have going on right now that's causing you stress, and they'll follow up with you either with resources, check in to see that if you have been able to access them to bring the stress down, and can be able to connect you with services because they're there and they're available, and often we don't know about it. So I would start with there to make sure you're not paying for things that you don't need to.
And just to confirm to everyone listening, area agencies on aging, it is a free resource. Now, there could be some eligibility for additional services that you may have to supplement, but they're not a paid service where someone puts a foot in the door and the clock starts ticking. This is part of a resource the federal government, the state, and even local do to be able to provide resources that care to all people. So we're coming almost to the end of our segment today, but I think it's important to bring up the question. A lot of misconceptions about caregiving, and I kind of want to hit them on the head. Diane, can you kind of walk through some of the misconceptions I think maybe even employers have or family members may have about caregiving?
Yeah, I here at AgeOptions, we really do a lot of work to try to support our employees who are caregivers, and those are the best employees. If you have an employee who cares about their loved one to the extent that they are needing to take time off, this is somebody you want to hang on to on your team. You want those kinds of caring people who are looking out for their loved ones. So you want to make room for them and help to find ways of supporting them over lunchtime programs and those kinds of things. I think what we are running into in Illinois and across the nation really is that people do not realize they are caregivers often. So they don't even know to look for help. They're not identifying as caregivers. So maybe the people who are listening today realize they are caregivers, but if you have a friend, if you could just help them self-identify, like, yes, to your friend, you are a caregiver and there is help available to you. I just think having your next door neighbor tell you, like, this is something real for you. You really need to, identify as a caregiver and look out for help through support groups and through our caregiver resource centers to help you out. Think of yourself in a different way. You've taken on another identity as a caregiver. And I think that's just really something important to note, when that kind of changes over. And in terms of a misconception, I think the other thing is that there can be very bright spots in caregiving. And I've just heard so many stories, and out of the people that I have cared for, there's been some really horribly tough times, but there's also been some wonderful times. When my aunt passed away of leukemia, it just was one of the most meaningful times that I had with her throughout her life, where I was really able to reconnect with her and, watch some old movies that she had enjoyed. And I remember finding her most favorite music, even in the hours as she was passing away. And I will always look back on those as some of the fondest times that I had with her. So, I know that sounds strange, but, having like a good death, or having, she was able to die at home. It took a great deal of effort to be able to do that. But there can be bright spots. It's not always bad. You kind of need to look for them. You need to look for how to reconnect with that person and bring back some of the ways that you enjoyed life with them, I think.
Mm-hmm. Amy, let's talk a little bit about the Illinois Family Caregiver Coalition, the support you offer caregivers, the help you bring to help find the light during their journey, the help you guys do on an advocacy level, organizational and community. Can you talk to us a little bit about the coalition and what it does for individuals?
Yeah, thank you, Lori. So a couple of years ago, we saw, and Diane and a lot of her colleagues were instrumental in this, in creating the Illinois Family Caregiver Coalition. It came along with largely with a grant from the Retirement Research Foundation. But there are many states around the country that have had groups like this. And so if folks are joining from other states, there are a number of almost all states seem to have either some type of family caregiver coalition where they're bringing together stakeholders like we are doing. So our goal is to bring together the folks that are the organizations that are out there helping caregivers, but also organizations that have the ability to reach unpaid family caregivers. Like Diane was saying, we're reaching out to employers. We're reaching out to a lot of communities that are maybe underrepresented and not part of these conversations every day, maybe rural areas. Maybe areas in need of economic need, LGBTQ community, the veteran community. We're bringing together all of these stakeholders to make sure that folks have a voice, and we're advocating for more resources. But first, we're finding out in the last year or so, we've really spent a lot of time in looking at best practices from other states and looking to see here in Illinois, what are the gaps? What's needed here in Illinois to better support and better help our family caregivers. So it's really, we're looking to identify, and we are so appreciative of partners like you, Lori, and AARP and Alzheimer's Association, a number of our larger hospitals, and some of the research groups and caregivers themselves who are telling us maybe they have finished their the heavy, really intense caregiving, and they, just like me, they want to turn around and help the caregivers that are coming after, and that are caregiving now and in the future, to say, hey, these are some great resources that are out there to help you reduce stress and help you be able to spend some quality time with loved ones. So it's a lot of advocacy, but it's also a lot of trying to provide resources and help better and improve the situation for caregivers coming after.
Thank you so much. So in Illinois, we have a campaign called Pathways to Care, and 2 initiatives with that for caregivers is the Family Caregiver Income Tax Credit, and then also is working with state agencies to create a virtual kind of a one-stop shop for people to go virtually for caregiving resources, to be able to supplement the remarkable work that our area agencies and AG do. And, everyone has all of our virtual stuff, and bringing it all together and making sure we have an easier access for the journey. And one of the unique opportunities AARP has is to continue working with partners like yourselves and caregivers, for all you who are listening, as we try to improve in advocacy and in community and at the federal level, the journey for family caregivers. So I want to thank Diane and Amy for your invaluable insights today. I appreciate it, your personal stories and your expertise. We have 1.3 million family caregivers. These are unpaid individuals. And I know for me, I've been doing this for about 10 years. I've learned from this segment, and I hope others have. For you caregivers joining us, know you are not alone. AARP is here to support you. We have resources and guides. If you go to www.aarp.org/caregiving, and then also if you need assistance, our resource line is 1-877-333-5885. Again, it is at aarp.org/caregiving, and the phone number is 1-877-333-5885 for just to have some conversations, some help. So together, we appreciate you all coming. Thank you, Diane and Amy. We hope we're balancing slightly the scales of caregiving and our self-care. Thank you for joining us today. Join us for future caregiving and virtual events with AARP. This concludes today's event. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lori.
Bye-bye.